Welcome to the first episode of the Best Games You Have Played podcast, your only podcast that talks about the best games that have sold over 1 million copies. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the indie hit Stardew Valley. Inspired by Harvest Moon, this won over a lot of fans. Why was it so successful? Well, stay tuned and find out why. Alright, so today we're talking about Stardew Valley. Now this is one of my personal favorites, but before we get into my opinions of the game, let's talk a little bit about the development history. Stardew Valley was created by indie game designer Eric Barone. Barone graduated from the University of Washington-Tacoma in 2011 with a computer science degree, but he had trouble getting a job in his field after graduation. Looking to improve his computer skills and for better job prospects, he came up with the idea of creating a game. That game would be Stardew Valley. Stardew Valley originally began as a modern fan-made alternative to the Harvest Moon series. He felt that the series had gotten progressively worse after Harvest Moon Back to Nature. Unable to find a satisfactory replacement, Barone began to create a game similar to the series, stating that his intent was to address the problems that he had with the series. Barone also was inspired by other games, including Animal Crossing, Rune Factory, Minecraft, and Terraria, adding features seen in those games such as crafting, questing, and combat. Initially, Barone considered releasing the game on Xbox Live due to the ease of publishing on that platform, but he found early in development that the scope for the game had shifted to be much larger than he originally suspected. Barone publicly announced the game in September of 2012 using the Steam Greenlight system to gauge interest in the game. After the title was shown, a great deal of support was shown through the fans. Barone began working in the title in full and engaging with users via Reddit and Twitter to discuss the progress of the game and gain feedback and propose additions to the game. After this, Barone spent 4 years working on the project, redoing it multiple times, and was the sole developer of the game, frequently spending 10 or more hours working on it each day. Barone created all aspects of this game on his own, from the pixel art to the amazing soundtrack. Barone wanted to keep Stardew Valley open-ended so that players wouldn't feel rushed or stressed to complete everything as soon as possible. He wanted players to learn about the game on their own and not have the need to use a walkthrough to be able to complete the game. After release, Barone continued adding to the game through updates. These updates range from small changes such as more endgame content being added to large changes such as the multiplayer mode being added in late 2017. But that's enough about the history of this game. Let's go into the game's sales, reception, and why I think it succeeded. Released in early 2016 for the PC and seeing releases on all other modern platforms throughout the years, this game has sold over 10 million copies across all its platforms. Not only has this game sold well, but it has also been critically acclaimed. Metacritic gave it an 89 from the critics and an 8.7 from the fans. IGN gave it a 9.5 out of 10, GameSpot gave it a 9 out of 10, and Giant Bomb gave it a 5 out of 5. It is clear why Stardew Valley has seen so much success throughout the years. There was a clear void in the market for farming simulation games like this, because as Barone stated, the Harvest Moon series had declined in popularity and quality before the game's release. Plus, the last mainline Animal Crossing game at the time released all the way back in 2013, and has not gotten a new mainline title until March of this year. Barone also added other things to the game, such as combat, to attract players that are not traditionally a fan of this kind of game. Speaking for myself, I'm not usually into games like this, but after seeing all the game had to offer, I had to give it a try. Speaking of me playing the game, now let's go into my opinions of this indie gem. First up, let's talk about the gameplay. Now there are so many different options you have when playing this game on different things to do, such as farming, fishing, exploring the mines, and so many more things. And these aren't things to do just to do. There are so many different goals in Stardew Valley, such as making new friends with people in the valley, or restoring the community center, or adding to your farm, getting new buildings, getting new equipment. There's always something you could be improving on in Stardew Valley. There's a level up system, and again, getting your equipment maxed out is something that's really fun to do. Plus, you can always get yourself some animals and raise them. You can really take this game whichever way you want it to go, and that's one of the things I absolutely love about this game is the amount of freedom, and it presents it to you all right then and there at the beginning. It doesn't limit you like some games would, where it's like, today we'll introduce the mining and then we'll do the farming. It's not like that. You can kind of just do what you want to do from the start, and that is one of the best aspects of this game. So let's go into the art style for the game. Now, personally, I really like the pixel art style that they decided to do. It's not like your generic kind of pixel art style that you see in a lot of indie games. It kind of has its own flavor to it, and having like the text box with the actual portraits of the characters really adds to it, because if it was just the pixels and text, then it wouldn't be quite as impactful. Whenever you're making new friends with people in the valley and you're unlocking new cutscenes that kind of show character development and growth, of course some characters are written better than others, but some of the storylines in this game are very interesting, and they're all optional basically. You just have to build up a friendship with a valley member, and then you unlock new cutscenes kind of exploring their personality, that kind of thing. And again, these would not be as impactful if it was just pixel art style, so I really appreciate that they added portraits to give a better view of what these people actually look like. So for the soundtrack, I think the soundtrack is amazing. It is super somber, super calm. It's right up there with some of the best indie soundtracks of all time, like Undertale or Shovel Knight. I absolutely love it. It's not dedicated to like the pixel style of soundtracks. They kind of mix that in here and there, but it does also use real instruments, which I really appreciate that, because just limiting yourself to like an 8-bit sound kind of leads to generic sounding almost, and maybe not necessarily the best songs that they could be. So I really am glad that they stuck with normal instruments as well as adding some of the retro feel to it. But I just think it is incredible that this one guy made this whole game and 70+ songs in the game. I mean, come on, that's just an amazing feat right there. So going into my final opinions of the game, and you can already tell, but I absolutely love this game. It is one of my favorite indie games ever made. It's right up there with Undertale and Shovel Knight and Rogue Legacy for me, you know? It's definitely a top 5 indie title. There's so much to do, and again, that gameplay loop is just, it seems like it's never ending kind of thing, because there's always something you can be improving on, whether it be your equipment, your friendship levels, your farm, your animals, or the community center. There's always something to do. And then let alone you see the normal valley and you think that's all the game has to offer, but there's more things you can unlock. There's extra mines, different areas, all that kind of stuff. And not to mention with the updates, there's just so much. There was so much in the base game, but just the updates make it feel almost infinite to me. So if you haven't given this one a chance, which you probably have, but if you haven't, definitely consider getting Stardew Valley. I know the new Animal Crossing's come out, so it's gonna take up a lot of spotlight for this kind of game. But once you're done with that, once you kind of get bored with that, please, if you haven't already, give Stardew Valley a chance. Alright guys, thank you for listening to the first episode of the Best Games You Have Played podcast. Your only podcast that talks about the best games that have sold over 1,000,000 copies! Next week we are doing Super Mario Odyssey for the Best Games You Have Played podcast. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you do, let me know in the comments. If you have any suggestions, please let me know any games you guys want to see. And I also do another podcast called the Best Games You Would Never Played podcast, which is the best games you sold under 1,000,000 copies. So if you have any suggestions for that, please let me know too. And if you want to help the channel grow, please like, share, and subscribe. You know, we got a little small community here, but I think we can get it growing. So please do that if you really enjoyed. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.